Before I start the story, I want to tell you to subscribe because only 2% are subscribers, and at 1,000 subscribers I will post a special video. In the far reaches of the galaxy, on the planet Zorax, the Zoraxians lived in peace and harmony. They were an advanced alien race, known for their technological prowess and their commitment to preserving the natural beauty of their world. The Zoraxians had long abandoned the idea of war, choosing instead to solve conflicts through diplomacy and mutual understanding. But their peaceful existence was about to be shattered by an unexpected arrival. One bright morning, the Zoraxian sensors detected an unidentified spacecraft entering their atmosphere. The ship was unlike anything they had seen before, sleek, metallic, and emitting a strange energy signature. The Zoraxian Council quickly convened to discuss the situation. "We must approach this cautiously," said Councillor Zorax, a wise and respected leader. "We do not know the intentions of these visitors." "I agree," replied Councillor Liana, the head of the scientific division. "But we cannot ignore the possibility that they may come in peace. We should send a delegation to greet them." After much deliberation, it was decided that a team of Zoraxians would be sent to make contact with the visitors. The team was comprised of scientists, diplomats, and a few security personnel, just in case. They boarded a small shuttle and made their way to the landing site of the mysterious spacecraft. As the Zoraxians approached the ship, a door opened and a group of beings emerged. They were tall, bipedal, and clad in advanced-looking suits. Their faces were hidden behind reflective visors, but their body language suggested they were wary but not hostile. The Zoraxian delegation stepped forward, with Councillor Liana taking the lead. "Greetings, travelers," she said in the universal language of the galaxy. "I am Councillor Liana of the planet Zorax. We welcome you to our world." There was a moment of silence before one of the visitors stepped forward and spoke. "Greetings, Councillor Liana. I am Captain John Harris of the United Earth Federation. We come in peace and seek to establish diplomatic relations with your people." The Zoraxians were relieved to hear this. They had feared the worst, but it seemed that their visitors were indeed friendly. The two groups began to communicate more freely, sharing information about their respective worlds and cultures. The humans explained that they had recently discovered the means to travel vast distances through space, and were eager to explore new civilizations and establish alliances. Days turned into weeks as the Zoraxians and humans worked together, exchanging knowledge and building trust. The humans were fascinated by Zoraxian technology, especially their environmental preservation techniques, while the Zoraxians were intrigued by the humans' adaptability and resilience. However, not everyone on Zorax was pleased with the presence of the humans. There were whispers of dissent among some of the population, who believed that the humans would bring only trouble and conflict. These fears were fueled by tales of humanity's violent history, stories that had spread even to this distant corner of the galaxy. One evening, Councillor Zorax received a disturbing report. A group of Zoraxians had formed a secret organization called the Defenders of Zorax, dedicated to expelling the humans from their planet. They feared that the humans would exploit their resources and disrupt their way of life. Zorax knew that this could lead to serious trouble if not addressed quickly. He called an emergency meeting of the council and invited Captain Harris to attend. "Captain Harris," Zorax began, "we have a situation that requires your immediate attention. There are some among us who fear your presence here. They believe that your intentions may not be as peaceful as you claim." Captain Harris frowned. "I assure you, Counselor, we mean no harm to your people. We are explorers, not conquerors." "I believe you," Zorax replied, "but there are those who do not. We must find a way to address their concerns and prevent any potential conflict." The council and the human delegation spent hours discussing the situation. It was decided that the best course of action would be to hold a public forum where both Zoraxians and humans could voice their concerns and seek understanding. It was a risky move, but they hoped it would help to ease the tensions. The forum was held in the grand hall of the Zoraxian capital, with representatives from both sides present. Councillor Zorax opened the proceedings, emphasizing the importance of dialogue and mutual respect. For a while, things seemed to be going well. Both Zoraxians and humans spoke about their hopes for cooperation and the benefits of sharing their knowledge. But then, a Zoraxian from the Defenders of Zorax stood up. Why should we trust these humans? He demanded. Their history is filled with war and destruction. How do we know they won't do the same to our world? There was a murmur of agreement from some of the Zoraxians present. Captain Harris stepped forward to address the concern. I understand your fears, he said calmly. Yes, our history is not without conflict. But we have learned from our past mistakes. We are here to learn, to grow, and to build a future where different civilizations can coexist peacefully. The debate continued late into the night. Some hearts and minds were swayed by the human sincerity, while others remained unconvinced. As the forum came to a close, it was clear that there was still much work to be done to build trust between the two species. As the weeks went by, the defenders of Zorax became more vocal and aggressive in their opposition to the humans. They staged protests and rallies, demanding that the Council expel the humans from their planet. Tensions were rising, and it seemed only a matter of time before things would come to a head. Counselor Liana, who had become close friends with Captain Harris and his team, was deeply troubled by the situation. She spent many sleepless nights pondering how to bridge the growing divide between her people and the humans. One night, she came up with a bold plan. She called a secret meeting with Captain Harris and his team. I believe we need to take a different approach, she said. We must show the defenders of Zorax that humans are not a threat, but to do that, we need to do something dramatic. Captain Harris listened intently. What do you have in mind? I propose a joint mission, Liana explained. Something that will require us to work together and rely on each other. A mission that will demonstrate our shared values and our ability to cooperate. After much discussion, they decided on a mission to explore a nearby uncharted planet. The planet, known as Veridia, was rumored to have valuable resources and unique ecosystems. It was a dangerous mission. The journey to Veridia was fraught with challenges. The planet lay at the edge of the known galaxy, in a region where stellar anomalies and cosmic disturbances were common. Despite the risks, the joint Zoraxian-human expedition pressed on, their ship cutting through the fabric of space with a determination that matched their mission's significance. Captain Harris stood on the bridge of the expedition vessel, watching the stars streak past. Beside him, Counselor Liana reviewed data on a holographic display. They had been working closely together, their mutual respect and understanding growing with each passing day. We're approaching the Vidiian system, announced Lieutenant Simmons, a young and talented human navigator. We should be in orbit within the hour. Liana glanced at Harris. This is it. Let's hope Veridia is as rich in resources as the rumors suggest. It could be the key to proving our cooperative potential. The ship soon entered orbit around Veridia, revealing a world of striking beauty. Verdant forests, crystalline lakes, and towering mountain ranges stretched across its surface. But as inviting as it looked, they knew Veridia held its share of dangers. Scans indicate high levels of biodiversity, reported Dr. Merrick, a Zoraxian biologist. There are unique flora and fauna that could be invaluable for both our civilizations. Captain Harris nodded. Prepare the landing party. We need to establish a base camp and start our survey immediately. A shuttle descended to the planet's surface, carrying the first wave of the expedition team. Liana, Harris, and a mix of Zoraxian and human scientists and security personnel disembarked and began setting up their base camp in a clearing near a river. As they worked, the natural beauty of Veridia captivated them. Giant trees with bioluminescent leaves cast a gentle glow, and strange, colorful creatures flitted about, curious but cautious of the newcomers. Look at this place, said Dr. Elena Ruiz, a human ecologist. It's like something out of a dream. But dreams can become nightmares, cautioned Commander Tharak, the head of the Zoraxian security team. We must remain vigilant. The team set up their equipment and began their exploration. Scientists from both species worked side by side, collecting samples, analyzing data, and cataloging the diverse life forms they encountered. The spirit of cooperation was strong, and for a while it seemed that the mission was destined for success. However, as they ventured deeper into the wilds of Veridia, they began to encounter signs that they were not alone. Strange tracks, remnants of primitive structures, and eerie noises at night hinted at the presence of an unknown intelligence. One evening, as the team gathered around the campfire to discuss their findings, they heard a distant howl that sent chills down their spines. "What was that?" asked Dr. Marek, his eyes wide with fear. "Probably just a local predator," said Harris, trying to keep his voice steady. "But we should increase our night watch rotations, just to be safe." The next day, the team discovered a series of cave paintings deep in the forest. The crude but intricate drawings depicted a tall, shadowy figure wielding strange weapons and surrounded by smaller beings. It was clear that whoever had created these images had encountered something or someone powerful and frightening. "This changes things," said Liana, examining the paintings closely. "We need to find out who or what these beings are. If they pose a threat, we must be prepared." The team split into smaller groups to cover more ground. Liana and Harris led one group, while Tharek and Dr. Ruiz took another. They agreed to rendezvous at the base camp before nightfall. As Liana and Harris's group trekked through the dense forest, they stumbled upon an ancient overgrown ruin. Vines and moss-covered crumbling stone structures and strange symbols were etched into the walls. "These look like they predate any known civilization in this sector," said Dr. Marek, his voice filled with awe. "We may have stumbled upon something extraordinary." They carefully explored the ruins, documenting their findings and taking samples. But as the sun began to set, they realized they needed to head back to camp. As they retraced their steps, they heard rustling in the bushes. "Stay alert," whispered Harris, his hand on his weapon. Suddenly, a group of humanoid creatures emerged from the foliage. They were tall and slender, with skin that seemed to blend into the surrounding environment. Their eyes glowed with an eerie light, and they carried primitive but lethal-looking weapons. "Hold your fire," ordered Liana. "We don't want to provoke them." The creatures watched the Zoraxians and humans intently, their expressions unreadable. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a strange, guttural language. Liana and Harris exchanged puzzled looks. "We don't understand you," said Harris, trying to keep his voice calm. "We come in peace." The creature tilted its head, then made a series of gestures. It seemed to be trying to communicate, but the meaning was unclear. Liana took a step forward, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. "We mean no harm," she said slowly. "We are explorers, seeking knowledge." After a tense moment, the creature nodded and motioned for them to follow. The team hesitated, but decided to comply, hoping to learn more about these enigmatic beings. They were led through the forest to a hidden village, where more of the creatures lived. The village was a marvel of natural architecture, with structures built seamlessly into the landscape. The leader of the creatures, who introduced himself as Kalin, welcomed them and began to explain their history. Using a combination of gestures, drawings, and a few words of broken galactic standard, Kalin conveyed that his people, the Vidiians, had once been a technologically advanced civilization. However, a cataclysmic event had forced them to abandon their technology and live in harmony with nature. Kalin showed them a sacred site, where ancient artifacts and writings were preserved. These relics told the story of the Veridians' downfall and their subsequent decision to forsake technology. The Veridians believed that technology had brought about their near destruction and chose to live a simpler, more sustainable life. "This is incredible," said Dr. Marek, examining one of the artifacts. "We could learn so much from them." "But we must be careful," warned Liana. "We cannot disrupt their way of life or bring them harm." As they continued to communicate with the Veridians, Liana and Harris realized that their mission had taken on a new dimension. It was no longer just about finding resources or proving their cooperation. It was about understanding and respecting a civilization that had chosen a different path. However, back at the base camp, tensions were rising. Commander Tharek's group had encountered a hostile creature, leading to a skirmish that left one of the humans injured. The defenders of Zorax, who had been closely monitoring the mission, seized upon this incident to fuel their campaign against the humans. "They're endangering our people!" shouted one of the defenders at a protest outside the council chambers on Zorax. "We must bring our team back before it's too late." News of the incident reached the expedition team on Veridia. Liana and Harris knew they had to act quickly to prevent the situation from spiraling out of control. They returned to the base camp and called a meeting. "We need to address this head-on," said Liana. "We can't let fear and misunderstanding undo all the progress we've made." Captain Harris agreed. "We'll explain what we've learned from the Veridians and emphasize the importance of this mission. We can't let one incident define our entire effort." They broadcast a message to both the Zoraxian Council and the human authorities, detailing their discoveries and the peaceful nature of the Veridian people. They stressed the need for continued cooperation and urged their leaders to support the mission. The response was mixed. While some were encouraged by the progress and called for patience and understanding, others remained skeptical and demanded an immediate end to the mission. As the debate raged on, Liana and Harris knew they had to find a way to prove that humans and Zoraxians could coexist and work together. They proposed a joint project with the Vidiians, aimed at preserving their environment while sharing knowledge that could benefit all three civilizations. The Vidiians, seeing the sincerity and dedication of their new allies, agreed to the project. Together they worked on creating a sustainable development plan for Veridia, combining the Veridians' deep understanding of their ecosystem with the advanced technologies of the Zoraxians and humans. Weeks turned into months as the project took shape. The base camp grew into a thriving research outpost, where scientists from all three species collaborated on innovative solutions to environmental challenges. The success of the project began to change hearts and minds on Zorax and Earth, demonstrating the potential of unity and cooperation. But just as things seemed to be improving, a new threat emerged. A rogue faction of the defenders of Zorax. One fateful night, the explosives detonated, causing widespread damage and panic. Several members of the team were injured, and critical equipment was destroyed. The outpost was thrown into disarray, and it seemed that all their hard work was about to be undone. In the midst of the chaos, Liana and Harris rallied their team. They quickly organized search and rescue operations, tending to the wounded and securing the area. The Veridians, horrified by the violence, offered their assistance, and together they worked to stabilize the situation. As the dust settled, Liana addressed her team and the Veridians. "This is a setback, but it will not defeat us. We must stand united and show those who seek to divide us that we are stronger together." Captain Harris nodded in agreement. "We came here to prove that cooperation and peace are possible. We will rebuild, and we will succeed." The attack galvanized the team and their allies. Determined to overcome this challenge, they redoubled their efforts, working tirelessly to repair the damage and continue their mission. Their resilience and solidarity in the face of adversity became a beacon of hope, inspiring others to believe in the possibility of a better future. The sabotage at the Veridian outpost had brought the delicate balance between cooperation and conflict to a tipping point. The rogue faction of the defenders of Zorax had intended to drive a wedge between the Zoraxians and humans, but instead, they inadvertently strengthened the resolve of those committed to peace and unity. As the outpost was rebuilt, the Zoraxian Council and the United Earth Federation launched a joint investigation to identify the saboteurs and bring them to justice. The defenders of Zorax, realizing their failure, retreated into the shadows, but the damage had already been done. Distrust lingered, and both the Zoraxian and human populations were on edge. Back at the outpost, Liana and Harris focused on reinforcing security and rebuilding trust among their teams. They knew that the success of their mission depended not only on their scientific achievements, but also on their ability to foster genuine cooperation and understanding. "We need to show our people that we can rise above this," Liana said to Harris one evening as they reviewed the security footage from the attack. "We must continue to work with the Veridians and demonstrate that unity is our strength." Harris nodded, his face grim. "Agreed, but we also need to be prepared for any further attempts to disrupt our mission. We can't let our guard down." The joint investigation team, comprising both Zoraxian and human intelligence officers, worked tirelessly to track down the saboteurs. Their efforts paid off when they uncovered a network of defenders of Zorax operatives who had infiltrated various levels of Zoraxian society. The council acted swiftly, arresting the key members and dismantling the organization. With the immediate threat neutralized, the focus shifted back to the mission on Veridia. The joint project with the Vidiians continued to flourish, with significant advancements in environmental preservation and sustainable development. The collaboration between the three species was yielding groundbreaking results, and the atmosphere at the outpost was one of cautious optimism. One day, as Liana and Harris were discussing the latest findings in the research lab, they received an urgent message from Commander Tharik. "We've detected an unidentified ship entering Veridian space. It's not one of ours or the Federation's. You need to see this." Liana and Harris rushed to the command center, where Tharik and his team were monitoring the ship's approach. The vessel was large and heavily armed, unlike any known design. Its energy signature was unfamiliar, raising concerns about its intentions. "We've tried hailing them, but there's no response," said Tharik, his expression tense. "We need to be prepared for anything." The outpost was put on high alert, and defensive measures were activated. The Veridians, though peaceful by nature, understood the potential danger and offered their assistance in fortifying the outpost. As the unidentified ship drew closer, it suddenly altered course and landed a few kilometers from the outpost. The tension was palpable as a delegation, led by Liana, Harris, and Tharik, set out to meet the newcomers. When they arrived at the landing site, they were greeted by a group of tall, imposing figures clad in dark, ornate armor. Their leader, a stern-faced individual with piercing blue eyes, stepped forward. "I am Valen of the Kren Empire," he announced in a deep, resonant voice. "We have come to reclaim what is rightfully ours." Liana and Harris exchanged a quick glance. "What do you mean, reclaim?" Harris asked cautiously. Valen gestured to the surrounding landscape. "Veridia was once part of our empire. We have returned to restore our dominion and retrieve our lost technology." The implications of Valen's words sent a chill through the delegation. If the Kren were here to assert control over Veridia, it could spell disaster for the delicate alliance they had built with the Vidiians. "We did not know this planet was once part of your empire," Liana said diplomatically. "We have been working with the Vidiians to preserve and study their environment. Perhaps we can find a way to coexist and share our knowledge." Valen's expression hardened. "The Kren do not share. We conquer. We will tolerate your presence for now. But know this: any attempt to interfere with our mission will be met with force." With that, Valen and his entourage turned and marched back to their ship, leaving the delegation to grapple with the gravity of the situation. Back at the outpost, an emergency meeting was convened. The presence of the Kren had introduced a volatile new element to their mission, and the team needed to decide on a course of action. "We can't let the Kren take over Veridia," said Harris, his voice filled with determination. "The Veridians have a right to their own world, and we have a duty to protect them." "But we must be careful," Liana cautioned. "The Kren are powerful, and a direct confrontation could lead to devastating consequences. We need to find a way to negotiate and defuse the situation." The team agreed to send a delegation to meet with the Kren and propose a diplomatic solution. They knew it was a long shot, but it was their best hope to avoid conflict and protect the Vidiians. As the delegation approached the Kren ship, they were met by Valen and his officers. Liana stepped forward, her voice steady but resolute. "Valen, we seek a peaceful resolution. The Vidiians deserve to be heard, and their way of life respected. Let's find a way to coexist." Valen's eyes narrowed. "The Kren do not negotiate with those they consider inferior. But for the sake of avoiding unnecessary bloodshed, I will hear you out." The negotiations were tense and difficult, with Valen's insistence on Kren's supremacy clashing with the delegation's plea for cooperation and respect for the Vidiians. As the talks dragged on, it became clear that a compromise would be hard to reach. Meanwhile, back at the outpost, the Vidiians watched the proceedings with growing unease. Kalen, their leader, approached Liana and Harris during a break in the negotiations. "We appreciate your efforts," Kalen said, his voice filled with gratitude. "But we must be prepared for the worst. If the Kren cannot be reasoned with, we will defend our home." Liana and Harris nodded, knowing that the Vidiians' resolve could be both a strength and a potential flashpoint. They returned to the negotiating table with renewed determination, trying to appeal to Valen's sense of pragmatism. "Think of the knowledge and resources we could share," Liana argued. "Together, we could achieve so much more than through conflict." Valen seemed to consider her words, but his expression remained guarded. "I will take your proposal to my superiors," he finally said. "But know this, the Kren do not yield easily." The delegation returned to the outpost, their future uncertain. As they awaited the Kren's response, they continued to work closely with the Veridians, strengthening their defenses and preparing for the possibility of conflict. Days turned into weeks, and tension hung heavy in the air. The Kren ship remained an ominous presence, a constant reminder of the threat they faced. But in the midst of this uncertainty, the bonds between the Zoraxians, humans, and Veridians grew stronger. They shared their fears, hopes, and dreams, united by their commitment to protect Veridia. One evening, as the sun set over the verdant landscape, a message arrived from the Kren ship. Valen requested a final meeting, indicating that his superiors had reached a decision. Liana, Harris, and Kalen led the delegation to the rendezvous point. Valen awaited them, flanked by his officers. His expression was inscrutable, but there was a tension in the air that spoke volumes. "The Kren High Command has considered your proposal," Valen announced. "They have agreed to a temporary ceasefire and a period of observation. During this time, we will monitor your activities and determine if coexistence is indeed possible." It was not a complete victory, but it was a step forward. The delegation thanked Valen and returned to the outpost, where they shared the news with their teams. The period of observation would be challenging, but it offered a glimmer of hope. As the weeks passed, the Kren kept a watchful eye on the joint efforts of the Zoraxians, humans, and Veridians. The success of their projects and the harmony within their ranks slowly began to shift the Kren's perception. Valen, who had initially been skeptical and stern, found himself intrigued by the possibilities of cooperation. One day, he approached Liana and Harris with a surprising proposal. "Show me," he said simply. "Show me the work you have done and the potential you see in this alliance." Liana and Harris seized the opportunity. They gave Valen a comprehensive tour of their projects, highlighting the advancements in environmental technology and the positive impact on Veridia's ecosystem. They introduced him to scientists, engineers, and Veridians who shared their stories of collaboration and mutual respect. Valen listened intently, his stern facade gradually softening. By the end of the tour, he seemed genuinely impressed. "Perhaps there is merit in your approach," he admitted. "I will report my findings to the High Command and recommend that we continue this period of observation." It was a significant breakthrough, and the atmosphere at the outpost became one of cautious optimism. The path to lasting peace and cooperation was still uncertain, but for the first time, there was a sense that it might be achievable. As the sun set over Veridia, casting a warm glow over the landscape, Liana, Harris, and Kalen stood together, contemplating the journey that had brought them to this moment. "We have a long way to go," Liana said softly. "But today, we have taken an important step." Harris nodded. "We must continue to work together to build trust and understanding. Only then can we ensure a future where all our peoples can thrive." Kalen smiled, his eyes reflecting the hope that now seemed possible. "We will face whatever comes, united in our purpose and our commitment to peace." And so, under the watchful eyes of the Kren, the Zoraxians, humans, and Veridians continued their mission, determined to prove that war was not the only path, and that a future of harmony and cooperation was within their grasp.